Okay, guys, so we're doing 6.5 honors and 5.5 math 7. We're going to solve inequalities using multiplication or division. Now, the essential question I'm pretty much going to end up answering for you. So make sure you're listening closely. But it says, how does using multiplication or division to solve an inequality compare to using the same operations to solve an equation? Now, an inequality, I'm just going to say this again, is anytime you use like less than, greater than. Remember that includes less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to. Okay, so make sure that you're watching that. Pretty much what we're doing is the same. We're going through and we are going to isolate the variable, and then we are going to balance the equation. Okay, so we're always going to be using that operation of equality. So in this first one, when I look at it, I find the variable. It's x. Now, there's a very important thing here that you're going to need to remember. This is so important. And actually, I missed this when I was in 7th grade. I went on vacation and they taught this lesson. And then I would get these inequalities wrong all the time, and I couldn't understand why. And finally, my sophomore year in high school, one of the teachers was explaining it, and I was like, oh, that's what I've been missing the whole time. And you're going to see it right here. So I'm going to use the division operation of equality. So I'm going to divide by a negative 19 2/10. Now here's the thing. When I divide by a negative in an inequality, the inequality, see how this is greater than right now, needs to switch to the other direction. In other words, less than, okay? Because the inequality part means I'm going to divide by a negative 19 2/10 also on this side. See, it's both sides, right? This cancels out. The negatives are going to cancel out because a negative divided by a negative is a positive. These cancel out because anything divided by itself is 1, and 1 multiplied by x is x. Now realize here, the first thing you should be looking at is this is going to have a negative outcome. Because this is a positive divided by a negative, that is a negative outcome. Then we'd use our calculator, right? And we would divide. Now I've already done that, and so that ends up being 7 8/10. So this ends up being my equation, or sorry, my answer. So it's a negative 7 8/10 is less than x. Now guys, here's the way I expect you to graph it when it asks for a graph. I'm going to go through and I'm going to evaluate this. This is a negative number. So I'm going to put 0 here, right? And I'm going to put this negative number out here. I do not expect you guys to go through and write every single number in between, especially when it's a decimal. Now, you always identify the number that's in the answer. In other words, our number here is 7 8/10. Now, my next step is to look at. This says less than. It doesn't say equal to. So when I do this, this has to be an open circle on the number line. That signifies that it is either less than or greater than, but not equal to. If it were equal to, I would fill that in. Now, x is greater than that negative 7 8/10. So I would go through and put an arrow this way, signifying that everything above the negative 7 8/10 is a possible answer for x. Okay, guys? Okay, so once again, I'm going to say it. I'm going to go through the other problems a little bit quicker, but I'm going to say it. If you don't understand some of this stuff, make sure you ask questions in class. Okay, so let's look at this next one. Okay, so B. So again, we are isolating the variable. Okay, that means I am going to divide. I'm using the division property of equality. Divide by 3 25/100. I'm going to divide by 3 25/100 over here. This cancels out. The y is isolated. It's by itself. Now notice how this time I did not switch the inequality. That's because we divided by a positive number, not a negative number. Okay? But anytime you divide by a negative, you need to switch the inequality. Then I go through and I look at this and I go, okay, I'm dividing a negative number by a positive number. That's going to be a negative outcome. Then this one I've worked out also And so this ends up being, oh, you know what? I didn't write this correctly. This is negative. So guess what? I do need to switch the inequality. We divide by a negative, we switch the inequality, and then we're dividing a negative by a negative, so we have a positive outcome. Sorry, guys, I wrote that wrong. So you see how these negatives cancel each other out, because this is actually a negative problem. And then I have to divide by a negative here, so the inequality switches. These negatives will cancel each other out, and this will be 19. So y is greater than 19. Now again, I'm going to go through and I'm going to evaluate this and do it. The 19 is over here, so the graph, I'm going to put the 0 over here, and I'm going to put the 19 here. Now I'm going to look up here. Can it be equal to 19? No, it can't. So I need to put an open circle here. Then I'm looking, is y greater than or less than 19? Y is greater than, so my arrow goes this way when I graph. Okay, guys? All right, let's go to example 3. Okay, so here's what we're looking at here. Now, I wanted to definitely do this one because it looks so confusing. And this is why I wanted you guys to learn how to go through and cross-cancel, okay? So I still need to isolate k just like I've been doing in the other ones. But this looks weird because it's a fraction over here. And how do I cancel that out? How do I balance the equation, okay? This is how I do it. I put this as a multiplication so I can cross-cancel this. So I'm going to put a negative 0 and 5/10 up above over 1. See how they're across from each other so I can cross-cancel it? That's what we want to be able to do. But remember, anything I do on this side of the equation, I have to do on this side of the equation. So I put this over 1. I'm also multiplying by a negative number, okay, over here, and I put that over 1. Now notice, these cross cancel. This leaves k over 1. K over 1 is simply k. Now, because this is the multiplication operation, we're not dividing, we do not switch the inequality. The inequality stays the same. See how I'm multiplying it? See that multiplication symbol in between? Then I'm going to multiply these over here to simplify, and this ends up being a negative 6. Okay, guys? Okay, then we evaluate, right? 0 here, negative 6 here. Is it equal to it? Nope. If it were equal to it, there'd be the sign underneath, but there is not. So in other words, I'm going to put an open circle. Now is k less than or greater than negative 6? It's less than, so I need to go this way. And that's the graph. Okay, guys? I'm trying to show you plenty of examples here so you can get this down, but that's why we're also going to go over this in class. All right, one last problem. You guys ready? Okay, so here's what we're looking at. This is Excel number 6. Okay, this is your challenge problem. All right. So the reason it's a challenge problem is simply because of this. Now, I've tried to tell you guys over and over again, every fraction is a division problem, but it also works the other way around. Every division problem can be a fraction. So we're actually going to set this up exactly the same as we just did the last problem. So in other words, this would be 18 is less than, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put x over 6. X divided by 6. X divided by 6. Okay? Then I'm still going to go through and isolate the variable. That means I'm going to multiply by 6 over 1 so that I can cross cancel. But remember, that also means I have to multiply by 6 over here. Now this does get x by itself. X is greater than, and then 6 multiplied by 18 is 108. Okay? Now, I go through and do the same thing. Here's my graph. Here's 0. Here is 100. Oops. Here is 108. Is it equal to? No. Open circle. Okay? Now, is x greater than 108 or is x less than 108? It is greater than. So in other words, I'm going to put what's greater than 108, 109, 110, 110, 111. So I'm going to put the arrow going that direction. And that's your graph. Okay, guys? So hopefully that explains everything. If not, that's why we have time in class to ask questions. Okay, guys.